Good morning, everyone. I'm in beautiful Lanark County, the maple capital of Ontario. Royce just scared off a woodcock. I love those little spring birds. We're in the forest here, in a beautiful area of managed land. And want to talk to you a bit about maple season. It's wrapped up, at least wrapped up for me, and probably the next week a lot of commercial producers will be pulling their taps. But I want to talk to you a bit about the season this year. It was really good, had lots of sap, a really good run. And some folks, though, some commercial farms did not have a good year due to the severe ice storms we had here in Ontario. Some areas actually saw 20 millimeters of ice accretion on the trees, causing severe damages to these maple forests. So that's really sad. So Peterborough and the Barrie area, Huntsville, that kind of stuff, very severely damaged. So my heart goes out to those producers. Every year I go out and I support local maple community. I buy some maple syrup, tour their sugar bushes. It's a really wonderful experience. And of course I tap my own trees myself, just 5 taps, nothing crazy. But today let's talk a bit about when your maple production goes wrong and you make mistakes along the way and your maple syrup has some issues. Let's talk about it. Something that happened to me this year was there's a lot of sugar sand. So that's the mineral component of the maple sap, and it's more of it as the season goes along and the trees get, close to budding out. So you can kind of prevent that a bit by filtering with your pre-filters. I do multiple pre-filters of my sap through the process, and then I put it through the Orlon filter, which really takes out a lot of that kind of stuff. This year there's been an awful lot of the maple sand. Looks a little bit unpalatable to people who don't know what it is. You can fix that. You basically heat up your maple syrup again. You put it through the Orlon filter to get the niter out of there. The sugar sands, niter is also another name for it. And then you bottle it, but you need to bottle it at 185 Fahrenheit. It's somewhere between 180 and 190 Fahrenheit exactly. Because if you don't, then what happened to me actually this year was that I bottled it a bit too hot. And then the sugar sand actually formed after filtration, not before. I had done a really good job getting out the before stuff. It came out after. So really important, filter, and then bottle at the right temperature. So I'm actually thinking this year maybe I'll end up getting a bottler. Will actually hold the temperature in around 185 Fahrenheit, and then will hopefully not end up with the problems that I end up with this year with the sugar sand. But you know what? It's good stuff. A lot of people swear by it. It's like nature's Tums, and it's really good in coffee. So not a huge deal if you have that mistake. Sometimes you're just slightly off in terms of your sugar concentration and you end up with a bit of crystallization of the maple syrup in the bottom of your bottle. Not a big deal. Just warm up the bottle a little bit or don't, and you'll just lose a little bit of your maple syrup. It's just a little bit of a super saturated solution there, so that's why you end up with those crystals. Another thing I've messed up is overboiling my maple syrup. In the worst case scenario, you end up having to pivot to make candy. You can make your taffy, your maple sugar, your hard rock candy. So if you go over, you turn your back for 2 seconds and the temperature goes too high, prepare to pivot to make something else other than maple syrup. Commercial producers have ways of refrigerating sap and they kind of boil every single day. Not all of us can do that. So sometimes, storage of your sap actually affects your final maple product. So for me, I'm lucky when I start tapping, there's lots of snow. I pack it around the buckets. The sap stays pretty refrigerated, freezes overnight and whatnot. So I rarely ever have spoilage. But if you're in an area where it's a little warmer, if you leave your sap out longer, it's going to have things could crawl in it like bugs or mice and die and make a really bad smell. Usually it's the bugs though. I don't have big openings in my buckets or anything, but if you have those little steel buckets on the trees, then certainly you could get a little critter in there that falls in and drowns, spoiling your sap. But quite often it's bacterial spoilage and mold spoilage. So you can get really nasty flavors with that. Certainly boiling can get rid of a little bit of stuff, but if you have a lot of contamination and you open the bucket and it really stinks, don't boil it, waste your time. I wouldn't use it for my maple syrup. Let's talk a little bit about mold contamination. So mold contamination, not unheard of. Usually it's happened to me when I have basically not had the right sugar content of my maple syrup. It's a little bit too weak, and so bacteria and fungus can thrive. Other times it's happened when I've been at the cabin the ducks. Spring is here. At the cabin, when I've opened and closed a bottle, not refrigerated it, I've got a little pellet of mold on the top. Some people swear that you can actually take off that piece of mold and boil down the maple syrup and it's fine. I don't find that to be the case. I would never do that. I mean, I did it once, never again. The taste was terrible. It tasted moldy. So just store your maple syrup properly and make sure you have the proper sugar concentration of your maple syrup when you make it. And I usually store my maple syrup if it's open in the fridge now, or which you're supposed to, and then also in the freezer if I have huge batches and I'm not going to eat it right away. Put the maple syrup in the freezer. It'll last forever. So off flavors can be a big problem, and sometimes that starts at the tree. You know, sometimes I've accidentally put my tap under a tree where there is a big dead branch above. Look above you, see what's going on. If there's a big dead part of the tree, you may get some really nasty flavors in your final maple syrup product. Also, if you're tapping late in the year, you know, this time of year, you know, the maple trees above us, there's a few in here, they're going to get really buddy. You know, the nutrition sort of changes within the tree to support the buds. And basically that can make your sap taste really buddy, and it's not a great flavor. So a lot of people pull their taps before we get to that part of the season because you don't want all that hard work to go to waste and you get sour sap kind of at the end of it. Well, what mistakes have you made if you've been making maple syrup? What have you done over the years and what are your remedies? I'd love to know down below in the comments. We've all made these mistakes. Not a huge deal, but when things happen, you gotta know how to pivot, fix them, or just suck up the loss. All right, hope you guys have a great week and enjoy the spring and the sounds of spring. Bye for now.